business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Shane, you've had a career that spans the Army, Nike, Radial, Siemens. What made you decide to go through the pain of building your own consulting practice after such an experience?
Yeah, I think it was twofold, really. Part of it was my last corporate role had gone through some restructuring. The company had just been purchased, and my position was eliminated. So there was that. And then I think that kind of forced me to make a decision probably earlier than I wanted to, but I'd kind of been thinking about the consulting arena for a while. And quite honestly, the main reason that I'd been thinking about that is I had just worked with so many consultants over the years in all of those roles. And I felt honestly that something was missing, at least with a lot of the consultants I was working with. They were really smart. They definitely brought value, but I felt that there was a gap between kind of sometimes what we needed and what they were providing. So I guess I wanted to fill that gap as much as I could.
I like it. You had a need for yourself, and then you decided to fill that need, which makes sense, which is how a lot of consultants start. What would you say is the problem that you help solving now?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, and I'll start with the gap I saw. The biggest gap I saw is there were some really good recommendations, a lot of, let's call it, nice PowerPoints and really solid advice. But, I think there's a gap between the advice and implementation. And I just saw too often either the consultants would hand it back to the organization for implementation, or they would kind of be there along the way, but it was more in an advising and guiding, but not really a coaching and partnering to implement. So that's what I really focus on in what I do now with the companies I work with. Is it's not just I come in and make recommendations. It's I'm right there with them, whether it be a produce factory, whether it be a lumber yard, whether it be a hospital, or like where I'm today in Austin is a company that's 3D printing shoes. I'm right there with them, helping them to implement those things that we're doing.
So I like what you're saying here. So you're gonna help them strategize, but also actually implement the strategy that you've defined with them. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Because I think really what that takes is, that partnership. And I keep using that word a lot, but I really believe it is a partnership. Mm-hmm. And some partnerships are 3 to 6 months. And I've been working with some clients for years now. It just depends on those needs, and those needs change. Mm-hmm. But I think when you look at the implementation piece, I think the key with that is leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that's a piece that I was just writing about this the other day on LinkedIn, that it took me a while to realize that in everything I was doing, I was kind of bringing that leadership to the table that they needed to help implement those things that we had been strategizing about.
Why do you think there was such a gap in the market?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One, I think there's this, and it still exists today. I have discussions with my wife and business partner about this all the time. She's like, well, as a consultant, can we really do that? Or, like literally, I mean, I'm working with some clients where, they want my help in making hiring and firing decisions. And, they want me to help them with interviewing candidates. And just, I would say it's not the traditional consultant model.
Yeah.
But I think, at least in my experience, the companies where they need that assistance, whether it be a startup or whether it be a company that's just really growing quickly, which is kind of the space I seem to be in right now. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, is they have people that can implement them, but they need that partner to stand with them and to kind of help coach them along the way.
Mhm.
Sorry about
Here
that.
we go. We have a
There
guest.
goes my dog in the background. Yeah.
That's all right. He's a cutie. He wanted to join the discussion,
Yeah. Apparently she had something to say.
Well, I like this. I think that does make a lot of sense. At the end of the day, as a consultant, you want to consult. That means a lot of people try to get out of the actual implementation and day-to-day. And there is nothing wrong with that. When you find the right positioning that allows you to do a little bit of both, this allows you to retain much, much better. And we're going to get back to that part a little bit later on, but I suspect this is something you don't struggle with in your business, because when you're actually here during the strategy definition, but also execution and implementation, you work with clients for many, many years, which is what you also mentioned. So that's going to be an interesting one. Who do you service specifically, Shane? Because you mentioned a 3D shoe manufacturing or like printing. Like, who do you help?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I got a phone call from a former boss of mine at Radial.
Okay.
He had kind of, and that was actually my last corporate role before I went into consulting.
Here we go.
We had worked together for a while. We had traveled together, and Sean had gone on to StockX and done some other things. I had gone into consulting, and he said, "Hey, listen, I'm now working with a company called Zellerfeld, which is based in Germany, but doing a lot in the US, and they're scaling, and I need some help." So I was on a plane the next week to Hamburg, Germany, working with them for a couple of weeks. Did that a couple of times. Now they're down in Austin growing, so I'm down here. And it's interesting because what I get to do, and I think why I really am passionate about what I do, is I'm working with everybody from the founder, Cornelius, to Sean, who's their COO, to their HR folks. This morning, I'm out on the floor with the technicians and the operators, looking at some of the quality issues that they're having and helping them walk through a 5 why to determine root cause on that. So it's interesting because I get to work with so many different people, and I'm not kind of pigeonholed into only working with this person or only working with this group. And I think that's the part I really enjoy.
Yeah. Did you try some of those hamburgers in Hamburg?
They have some good food over there. I actually, I'm more of a Weisswurst or a schnitzel person.
Okay, fair enough. Then you get to enjoy the real German food.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this. So that's interesting because that's purely referral. You're going to work with literally each and everybody in the company that will be relevant to your consulting practice, and that can go from the C-level to on the production floor. Who makes the decision though of hiring you, Shane? Like, who are you trying to get into the room with to be like, guys, you need me here?
Yeah, great question. I think it's normally a couple of things. One, the company I'm working with now is one of the largest poultry companies in the U.S. Okay. They're called Mount Air Farms, and I actually met them at a conference. So I was speaking at a conference. I tend to be very passionate about the operational excellence in the leadership space, and my presentation was kind of talking about those two elements. So afterwards, one of the folks pulled me aside, and later I found out he's one of the senior vice presidents there. And he said, "Hey, I think we could leverage your help in," they already had a pretty good operational excellence program, but they wanted to kind of take it to that next level. And we sat and talked for probably about an hour and a half, connected a couple more times over the phone. And then probably about 2 months later, I started working with them. So I think there's that piece of it. I've also met some clients speaking at different SHRM conferences, HR conferences. I'll go and speak and meet people there. So and then some of it's through referrals. I met one probably 3 years ago through LinkedIn. He had followed me on LinkedIn for a while, had kind of commented on some of my posts, and then he kind of reached out one day and said, "Hey, I took one of the courses that you offer. That was kind of a self-paced course that I had put out there." And he goes, "Would love to talk to you about if you think you could help us or not. So those are kind of some examples of where a lot of my clients have come from.
This is interesting. So that's the perfect segue into the next question, which is around marketing. So LinkedIn has worked for you. What type of post did get the attention of the right person? I think that could be super valuable for B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now.
Yeah. So, well, I have to admit this up front. My wife she's more on the marketing side of it, and she is our CEO, and she's definitely the brains of the business. But so I have been posting on LinkedIn for years now. Actually, true story, my first 3 roles when I came out of working for the government were a direct result of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Recruiters reaching out to me that had saw me on LinkedIn and seen my post. That's how I ended up with Siemens. That's how I ended up with Radial, and that's how I ended up at Nike, actually.
Interesting.
So then you fast forward that to my consulting business, and what we do is we have someone that helps us on the marketing side. Basically, takes some of the videos that I do when I'm at conferences or at I'm doing leadership training with Hertz rental car right now.
Okay.
And so they'll take snippets of that and then put them out there on LinkedIn. Now we also do it on Instagram, on X. So I think we do it on Facebook as well. So we're on 3 different platforms. But for me, just at least I can speak to where we're at right now. Most of it has come through LinkedIn, and quite honestly, it's come through me just posting about different work I'm doing, different challenges I'm running into, kind of sharing what's worked and hasn't worked for me. I'll be honest, that tends to resonate the most with people.
So you hit on something so important here that I want to double down on it, Shane, because I think this is pure gold for B2B coaches and consultants who are thinking about developing their marketing mix, strategy, brand, whatever. We're recording this episode in December 2025. I think 2026 and forth is going to be about authenticity, trust, expertise, but also showing when you're not at your best. And in the sense of you don't want to be, self-pitying whatsoever, but it's more like, hey, this is the challenge I'm running into right now. I haven't solved it yet, but this is how I'm thinking about it. I think this type of content, unfiltered, providing value, bonding with your audience, bonding with the people who might make the decision of hiring you or working with you, seeing that you're real, seeing that you have some answers, you solve problems like the ones they have, but you're also human and you're showing that. I think this is how people are going to win in 2026. I mean, there is a reason why I'm doing all those recordings live. It's because I want people to see my messed up French accent and sometimes fumbling and searching for my words in English. But what you just said here is the base of any marketing strategy, I think, for B2B coaches and consulting 2026. So I have one thing to say to conclude this. Your wife is very smart indeed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you hit on an important thing here. I mean, when we talk about things like trust and things about and authenticity, I think being vulnerable and saying, listen, I'm going to admit I don't have all the answers, right? I am not going to come in and act like I'm going to know exactly what we need to do, when we need to do it, how we do it. But what I do promise is that I'm going to collaborate with you and your team, that I'm going to be honest. And, there's clients I've told that, we get 3 to 4 months into it and they're like, Shane, we kind of expected to get further by now. And I said, well, sometimes this is the way it plays out, right? And we've got a couple of different avenues here. I am happy to let you out of the contract. And if you think you can go find somebody else that can do it better, and I'll help you do that. Or we can iterate, right? And what we're doing is we're kind of failing fast to figure out what's going to work. A vast majority of the time, they say, let's keep going. And then we figure that out together. So I think that's one of the things that is really important to keep in mind is a majority of the time, I think, coming forward as a consultant when you first start, if you come in and you think you already know exactly what you need to do, I would caution you not to go in with that approach.
Okay, another golden nuggets that we need to dig into here. So I like what you say a lot, and I think there is tremendous value in that. I think in order for this to work though, Shane, and I'm curious to get your take on this, you need to work with people who are open-minded, who understand that things are not happening overnight, not anymore, who are coachable, and who are willing to test fast, fail, learn, iterate, grow. How do you find people like this when you're choosing your clients?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it starts with this. I think, and I see a lot of things on social media, on LinkedIn and other platforms talking about, and I call it C-suite bashing, right? And it's, well, the executive leaders, they don't understand this, or they don't do that, or they don't. I think we have to start from the position that a vast majority of executive leaders want to succeed. They want their company to grow, right? They care about the company and the people. So I think we have to start there. I think then we have to come to the realization that in all of the executives I've worked with, that they're constantly thinking about three things. They're thinking about, obviously, revenue, right? They're thinking about, let's call it money, revenue, expenses, things like that. They're thinking about market share. I mean, if they're a publicly traded company, let's be honest, they know what the stock price is every day, as they should. If they're not publicly traded, they're worried about their segment of the market and how they're doing there. And then third, they're worried about risk and risk mitigation for the organization.
Yeah.
So I think what you have to do is what I try to do as a consultant is I try to tie the things that I'm working with on one or more of those three things, right? Because if you go in and let's be honest, if you start talking about things like culture, right? To a lot of senior leaders, culture is fluffy. It's not something they can put their finger on. How do you tie culture to those three things, right? Market share, risk mitigation, and dollars and cents. Well, it's pretty easy. Normally you can, but you need to connect those dots. So I think once we realize it and we start there, then it's a matter of how do we convey the message in a way that they understand and they can support. And I say all of that to say this. I really haven't found, other than a couple, leaders that I cannot work with. It's just the way that you message it and the way that you explain and ensure they understand the importance of what you're doing, and sometimes why it's going to take maybe a little bit longer than they would want it to.
Words to live by. What are you thinking about when it comes to what's next in marketing for you? Are you thinking of like doing more of what you're already doing, exploring other channels, or like just staying where you are? Like, what do you have in mind? Because it looks like you're full-time working for this 3D printing shoe company, or is it like one of the consulting engagements that you have?
It's one of them, yeah.
Okay.
And it just kind of happened this way. And it's weird because as I talk about it, it's not even, it's funny because the first, let's call it longer term client I started working with, I vividly remember it was a 6-month engagement. And it was a company where the factory didn't have any air. It was in Florida. And I remember the GM, the general manager, is the one that brought me in. And he goes, Shane, just so you know, you're going to be working out there and it's going to be in triple digits. It's going to be hot. It's going to be sweaty. It's not going to be pretty. And I said, okay, let's do it. And I remember I was about 4 months in. I was out on the floor working with one of their lean leaders, just sweating, and it was scorching hot. HR came by and started handing out popsicles, right?
Okay.
And I'm sitting there talking to him and a couple of the other supervisors as we're eating popsicles, and HR took a picture. And I remember right then going, I'm really going to miss working with this company. And I literally, a tear started to come to my eye. And I was having the same discussion a couple of months ago with Mount Air Farms, the poultry company. And I told the senior VP, I said, you know what? I said, I can't imagine not flying up here and working with you all. And he goes, that's a good thing, because I think we're going to extend you for another year. And so for me, and I was just like, and I was just so happy. For me, those moments and building those relationships with these companies, honestly, what I think about in my mind is, how can I continue to do this in a scalable way? In other words, that means bringing in more and more people. I've got some contractors that work with me now, that work with some clients, because I also do online training. I do in-person training, leadership, continuous improvement, project management. And so in my mind, where I'm going is, how do I continue to do this? How do I continue to help as many organizations as possible, but in a way where I don't forget where I came from, and I don't forget that those partnerships are what's most important.
So here you have it, guys. If you don't know how to retain clients, just finish your engagement with, like, I can't imagine not working here anymore, and they will renew you for a year. Thanks for the secret, Shane. That sounds like a good plan. I really like the spirit. I really, really like the spirit. So something we haven't talked about, Shane, is how you move a sale forward. So I have a good idea of how you do marketing, and you do it pretty well. Same thing on how you retain. But what happens between the moment that you get the attention and the moment that you're actually working? Once someone gets into your ecosystem, comments on a post, sees you somewhere, how do you move that initial interaction to a call, scope of work, letter of engagement, we rock and roll?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think this is going to be one of those moments where my answer is going to be underwhelming, but I've got to be just vulnerable. Honestly, I suck at it.
Interesting.
I'm going to be honest when it comes to, I guess, selling myself, and I'm just not, I'm not real good at it. And I think, when I try to explain why you should bring me in and why you should hire me over somebody else, and I'm still working on that, to be quite honest. I think fortunately for me, my vulnerability, my transparency, kind of my reputation, the things I post online, I think they tell the story much better than I do verbally. So I think luckily that's kind of made up for it. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the people that I've seen that do it really well, I think they're good at explaining the why behind it. They're good at telling the story of the things that they have been able to do for clients. I'm still learning to do that. I think fortunately my clients do it and refer me much better than I do. And then my posts do it much better than I do. But I think that's my secret, as underwhelming as it is.
So first of all, I appreciate you a lot, Shane, for sharing this on the show. And it's not everybody who would do that. So lots of courage. Thanks a lot for this. I mean, in an ideal world, or let's say in an ideal company, your product is so good that you never need to sell it, which is, from what you're describing, kind of the case here. You need to market it, because otherwise, how do you get the right eyeballs in front of what you can, help people with? But then it's all just obvious. The messaging is right, the positioning is right, the urgency is right, the benefit is right. And it's just like, cool, if you want to move forward, just give me a call. To your point around how people who do it very well do it successfully, telling the story, I think you're right, it's important. I've talked to a lot of B2B coaches and consultants. I think the best salespeople in consulting, so some firms have like business devs, right? I like the model where the consultant also does the selling, maybe because this is how it was done at PwC. I don't know. But I like that the person who has the expertise is also sitting in the room, although you have a key man risk and so on, lots of downstream effects of this, but whatever. I think the ones who are able to sell the most effectively are the ones who are able to, once you've made the business case, you made it clear that you can help and so on, can sit in the pain without feeling uncomfortable in front of the client. Like, okay, what does the fact of not having the right operations has done for your business over the last 6 months? How much is that costing you? Okay, if you don't do anything, what's going to happen in the next 6 months, and how much is that going to cost you? Oh, you didn't think about it. Well, let's think about it now. Obviously, doing it from a position of like genuinely wanting to help and not pushing, but people take action because they are in pain. And I think at some level, it's the same for companies. It's like you talk to a stakeholder, C-level executive, VP, director, who has a problem that he cannot fix. If you make them see that problem, make them feel a bit of pain, and show the solution that can help with the track record and case study, I think this is how you sell exceptionally well. But in your case, Shane, you don't have to, so you're in an even better position. Does that make sense? That was a very long rant.
No. That man, I wish I had talked to you a couple years ago. No, I think you're spot on, right? I mean, what is the pain you're feeling, and then what is that pain costing you, right? I mean, because
Amen.
And I hate to say everything breaks down to dollars and cents, but what is the cost of not doing something? Is it you're going to lose market share? Is it the risk to your brand? And I think, when you look at those three lenses I talked about earlier, obviously 1 is money, 2 is market share, 3 is risk or risk mitigation. I think putting it into those buckets is really smart. Mm-hmm. And there's a cost. You can put a dollar figure to a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here.
Amen to that. What's the one thing for you, Shane? I wouldn't necessarily say challenge, but what is the next level of growth that you're going to unlock for your business once you nail down that one thing? I think you mentioned contractors, right? And staffing up and being able to like do this at scale. How are you seeing yourself build that next level of your company?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think when you talk about scaling, and it's funny because it's what I work with companies on, right? As you scale, I think it's so hard, it's so hard to make sure that the culture that you've built stays that way. Because you're adding people, you're adding clients, you're adding complexity. And it's so easy to take your eye off the ball in terms of the culture of the organization, and I never want my brand, I never want my company to not be focused on how can we best partner with people to help them reach their true north. And I think as I add more people, as those people work more face-to-face with clients, I need to make sure, 1, that I'm bringing on board the right people, 2, that they have the same values that I have, and that they're going to treat the customers as partners and not as a transaction. And 3, I need to do it in a way that, and this, it sounds odd. I mean, we run a business here when we talk about consulting, but there's times where I'm not going to make a lot of money, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I have conversations with companies all the time, and they're like, okay, we want you to come and do a 1-day seminar on this. We really need some help. And I know, right, if it's a smaller startup, and I know the budget constraints that they have, because I've been in those positions, and they say, listen, we don't have a lot of budget. What's it going to cost? And, sometimes it throws them off. I said, what can you afford? And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, no, what can you afford? And I think, that's the thing that, that as I scale, I never want to get away from, is there are times that we're going to make decisions that, it might not look great from a dollars and cents standpoint, but it's the right thing to do.
Do you get some answers when you say, what can you afford? Do people actually give you their budgets?
Some do. And listen, I'll be honest. I've actually lost a couple of potential clients from that because they're like, this can't be real. No one ever says that. And it's like, well, I mean,
it's a good differentiator. Well, it's a differentiator as to whether it's good or not.
And there's times that I'll say, listen, I'll come and speak, I'll spend half a day with you, what if we just do where, everybody that's there, let's say there's going to be 100 people that, you purchase my book and I'll do it at a discounted rate and let's just call that payment. So I think there's normally ways to make it work. Mm-hmm. But if you have a company that really needs your help, that, and there's smaller startups where, there might be, okay, pay me what you can, and then let's talk about a small equity or something like that you can pay me later. There are ways that you can do this where they're not having to break the bank to bring you in to help them.
Yeah. I like that a lot. One of the things that my mentor taught us, and it was when we were struggling with sales and trying to understand a bit more sales motion, he was like, look, and that only applies if you genuinely believe that you have a good service and good product. Otherwise, that's just like bad faith manipulation. But it was like, if you genuinely have a great product that you genuinely feel can help whoever you're talking to, it's your moral responsibility to do everything you can to work with them and to help them. Now, the side of the coin of this is sometimes that means you need to help them even if you don't get paid. So that's with free resources, stuff that they can do on their own, giving them the secret sauce if they are willing to implement it themselves, or doing it at a discounted rate. The good thing is, if you have the time and bandwidth, this can lead to bigger opportunities because once they start seeing the results, budget tends to unlock more easily, also from a leadership perspective. But yeah, I like this approach a lot, Shane.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was an absolute masterclass. And I love how do I describe this? I think I'm missing the words in English, but like authentic you seem to be running your business. How much authenticity you seem to be running your business with. So thank you so much for coming, Shane. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, see some of those amazing LinkedIn posts, where should they go?
Yeah, our website is acilconsulting.com, a change in Latitude Consulting. They can check me out on LinkedIn. I think last time I checked, I was the only bald dude from Ohio that had Shane Wentz on LinkedIn. So you can come see me there. But yeah, that's the best way to reach out and find me.
To make sure that we'll put all the links in the description. And I can say at least one thing for sure, Shane, is that you've made a new connection on LinkedIn from this interview. Me, I just added you. Shane, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.